Hi, my name is Cassidy Bailey, and I will be presenting on the possible roles of forensic social workers in criminal cases involving juveniles. So, what is forensic social work? Forensic social work, according to the National Organization of Forensic Social Work, is the application of social work to questions and issues relating to legal and law systems. This specialty of our profession goes far beyond clinics and psychiatry hospitals for criminal defendants being evaluated, treated on issues for competency and responsibility. So overall, there's a wide variety of different areas that social workers can be a part of, and there is special training that is required. So, one thing that I wanted to touch base on was understanding the juvenile courts. So, the juvenile courts is separate from the adult court system. So, the juvenile courts handles cases for those who committed crimes prior to their 18th birthday. Until 1899, juveniles were actually treated the same as adults, and they did not have that separate court system. It led to juveniles being treated as the same, getting the same sentencing, not having that understanding that juveniles are completely separate from adults. According to Elizabeth Walker, today's society, every 45 seconds, a child is arrested. So that is somebody under the age of 18 that is being arrested. So forensic social workers are important for so many different reasons. As it was stated, social workers look into a variety of areas of one's life and advocate for both social and racial justice. Social workers will look at the development of the individual, the social and emotional well-being of the juvenile, and the community that they live in. Social workers will look at kind of everything that is encompassing to make that person them, no matter where they're coming from, what they've experienced. Forensic social workers understand both the legal system and the social and emotional well-being of a juvenile. So with forensic social working, they are able to understand the legal system, understand the laws, the criminal cases, understand how those are being processed, and help the juvenile understand that system. Because once a juvenile is entering into that system, they don't get the same rights anymore. They have this bad and negative label that is placed on them. So these social workers are able to help them navigate that system. Forensic social workers also will work within a variety of the court system. So they work with not just the juvenile, but also those within the legal system. So the lawyers, the law enforcement, all of those, they all work together for the social worker to help everybody work together. Social workers will especially challenge the justice system when it comes to juveniles, particularly with the racial disparities. We are seeing as a society that juveniles of color are being incarcerated and arrested at extremely high rates, significantly higher than white individuals. And forensic social workers are looking at that and advocating for those juveniles that are being arrested, especially those of color, to be able to be treated in a fair way and avoid that unfair treatment. So one case study that I had found was regarding a young man named Michael. He was 18 years old. He was a black teen growing up on the East Coast. He was living with his older sister in a low-income apartment when he was arrested. He actually grew up, his biological parents struggled with addiction, and then he was adopted as a baby to live with an aunt. And then his aunt and uncle had passed away from chronic illness, so then he had to go live with another relative, but ended up staying with his older sister full time. Michael has a history of struggling with depression and trauma. He was actually arrested on charges from when he was the age of 15, and he was injured severely when he was arrested. He was injured by the officers, even resulting in the doctors at the hospital calling Child Protective Services for child abuse. While Michael was in detention, he struggled with school. Prior to being arrested and put in detention, he did not struggle with school. He was getting straight A's. He was attending school regularly. Michael was originally released after a hearing. He was set for bail. They weren't able to make it. After so long, he was sent home on house arrest. And he was originally released back to his legal guardian. So it was I believe it was the cousin that he was staying with. But he advocated extremely hard for living with his sister because that was his support system. And eventually the judge agreed to let him go stay with his sister. So then COVID hit, and he was on an ankle monitor, so he was no longer able to go to school. He had to stay home for 24 hours a day. He didn't have that natural built respite that he was allowed to go and experience. So Michael began experiencing the physical and emotional distress, physical from the injury, emotional distress from COVID, being arrested, from being placed and having to stay at home 24/7. He even eventually had to have the crisis team respond, and he was admitted to a hospital for suicidal ideation, and he ended up being prescribed medication. Then after he was released from the hospital, he went to school, and the principal told him he had to leave the school because he had an open court case. The principal, when he was talking to Michael was like, I've been at school with an open court case before. Like, why is this an issue now? And the principal is like, you gotta leave. The ankle monitors are a distraction. Like, we can't have you here. Michael felt that injustice, that judgment that he was experiencing. And then after having his ankle monitor on for 2.5 years, the charges were dropped. And so had he had a forensic social worker involved, they would have been able to assist with having a risk assessment done when he was arrested to show that there was minimal risk for Michael committing another crime or for Michael being at risk of committing multiple crimes. They would have been able to help address the bail. His family was living in poverty, and they set a bail that the family was not able to meet. And they would have been able to assist with finding the strengths of Michael and seeing him as a human being. He got arrested. He was seen as a number. He was seen as a person that was just there in jail. Then he was placed on an ankle monitor and not able to go to school because he had a criminal record or had an open case. They would have been able to assist with allowing Michael to have a voice and to be able to speak for himself. He wouldn't have had to go through that period of time where he had to live with his legal guardian, who was not his support system. They would have advocated to help Michael make the progress that he needs. So with that, and doing all the research for forensic social workers within the juvenile court cases, forensic social workers allow for the juveniles to have a voice and to advocate for the fair treatment within the court system. Juveniles would be able to have the fair chance in having their needs met. If they're living in poverty, being able to help advocate for lower bails or understanding the risks or kind of what could be done better to help them. instead of incarcerating all the youth. And they would understand the circumstances revolving around the cases. Cases are not black and white. It's not just this happened, so here's the consequence. Most of the time there is reasons and there is circumstances that led to that. There are so many injustices that go on within the courts that forensic social workers can help with advocating. They can help with educating the lawyers and the judges and the law enforcement and understanding that just because somebody does something wrong does not mean they are a bad person. Forensic social workers can help with changing that. And then these are the references that I found, including the court case that I had found.